The Structure of Your Life by Robert Fritz, narrated by Rosalind Fritz. The age-old question, why do people do what they do, has been answered by psychology, philosophy, religion, genetics, and a million other types of explanations. It's a good question. It is a critical question if we are to enable ourselves to change what we do. Freud said, we do what we do as a reaction to our unconscious conflicting drives. Variations on this theme have grown over the centuries since Freud began his research, but the general commonality is that there is something wrong with us that needs to be resolved. Many spiritual systems agree that there is something wrong with us, but the causes are quite different. In the West, it is the conflict between good and evil. In the East, it is attachment and unenlightenment. In genetics, it is that certain genes have dysfunctional DNA. And on it goes. If only we could find out what's wrong with us and fix it, then everything will be okay. Let me assert this clearly and unequivocally. For most people, there is nothing wrong with them. That is not true of everyone. While some among us do have psychopathological conditions that need addressing, that's not the great majority of people. You might think, well, if there's nothing wrong with me, why do I have the types of problems and troubles I sometimes have? The answer is, there is a dynamic force in play in everyone's life. It will determine your level of success or failure. It will determine whether or not you'll be able to fulfill your highest aspirations and live according to your deepest values. And while I know this statement can sound like the beginning of an outrageous and ridiculous claim, the type that precedes an ad for brain implants or magic peas to put under your pillow, the reality is as solid and credible as is mathematics, physics, and nature. The dynamic comes from this principle. The underlying structure of anything will determine its behavior. Structure is a word that people use all the time, but one that often has an ambiguous meaning. In our work in structural dynamics, the term is specific. Structure is an entity, a whole thing, self-contained, which is made up of a number of parts. These parts are not a collection of random items. These parts connect with each other, and because of that relationship, have impact on each other. The parts of a car lying around the shop floor do not make a car. It is when they are put together, connected to each other, that the parts form the structure of a car. And the car behaves quite differently from the parts on their own, disconnected. People, like all of nature, are subject to structural principles. The patterns in your life will be a product of your underlying structure, and if unchanged, the patterns will repeat themselves in all aspects of your life, especially the important ones. A ship is a structure that has certain tendencies of behavior. If you are a passenger on a ship moving forward in the ocean, you may have many choices. But these choices are limited by the structure of the ship. You can only do what is possible on a ship. Being on the structure of the ship limits your choices to what is available on board and determines the direction you are heading. And while there might be nothing wrong with you per se, you might be in a structure that is not suitable for supporting your ability to create the life you want. Your life structures will determine your pattern. Two patterns, oscillating and advancing. There are two major types of patterns in your life, oscillating and advancing. In an oscillating pattern, you set out for something, a goal, an aspiration, something you want to create, and you move toward that outcome in the first part of the pattern. So far, so good. Often, you will achieve what you want. But then comes a reversal. Something happens, and you can't sustain the success any longer. This may be called a reversal. The next step in the pattern is that you lose what you once had. You will have your own examples of this. Think about your history of relationships, career, projects, business, growth and development. When you back up far enough from your life, You can track various oscillating patterns you may have had. Each story, while having vastly different details, has exactly the same form. This is not psychological, not fate, not bad luck, not some deep-seated flaw in your character. It is simply a function of the underlying structure you are in. You can't get there from here. The old chestnut of a joke is the city slicker who is lost in the country. He comes across a farmer and tells him where he is trying to go. You can't get there from here, is the farmer's answer. If you are in an oscillating structure, you can't change in the ways you might want from here. Everything you try will be consistent with your pattern. So if your pattern includes, for example, steps like jump in, find what you want, get involved, early success, complications become apparent, try to fix the situation, works for a while, sudden crisis, confrontation, quit, you will have the very same steps in your change effort. You will jump in, find the right approach, get involved, and have early success. And on it goes. You can't get to the life you want to create from here. First, you need to go somewhere else. Think of it this way. There are two different structural designs, oscillating and advancing. One like a rocking chair, in which forward movement leads to movement backwards. The other is a car, in which you can drive in the direction you want to go. You will have more success if you get out of that chair and take the car instead. What's the difference? The oscillating has 3 elements. The advancing has only 2 elements. The oscillating structure includes the outcomes you desire, the actual reality as it is at any moment, and the third element is conceptual. The assumptions, worldviews, fears, suppositions, beliefs, and ideals you have. The advancing pattern has just 2 elements, the desired outcome you want to create and current reality as related to that outcome. People have concepts, beliefs, worldviews, and they make assumptions and theorize. This will always be true, but it is when these concepts are included in the creative process that oscillation is bound to occur. The key is to leave whatever you believe at the door of the creative process. A structural change does not come from substituting one set of beliefs for another. It comes from understanding they are irrelevant to the actual creative process. Instead of searching for the right belief system, philosophy, or theory, think in terms of desired outcomes, what do you want to create, and current reality, where are you now in relationship to that outcome? That structure is the best one to generate effective actions on behalf of your aspiration, because the structure is like the one an archer has when stretching the bow, aiming the arrow at the target. The underlying structure supports action in favor of the desired outcome.